A place where your breath turns to ice before it leaves your lips, where a single mistake outside can cost you your fingers, your face, even your life. Imagine stepping out of a warm home and instantly facing a temperature drop of over 100 degrees. This isn't science fiction. This is a real village where survival isn't a choice. It's a daily battle against the coldest air on Earth. A frozen wolf, completely still, preserved by the cold as if time itself refused to move forward. In this place, that's not unusual, because here, if you stop moving, even for a moment, the cold begins to take over. This is Oymyakon, the coldest inhabited place on Earth, where temperatures can drop to minus 71 degrees Celsius. Numbers like that are hard to understand until you feel them, until the air itself turns against you. Step outside for just a few minutes, and your body starts to react. First, a sting on your skin, then numbness, then something far more dangerous. Frostbite doesn't wait. In less than 15 minutes, exposed skin can begin to freeze. Your nose, your fingers, your ears, all at risk. The water inside your cells begins to crystallize, slowly destroying tissue from the inside out. You don't feel it happen all at once. That's what makes it worse. One moment, your nose feels cold. The next, it turns white, completely numb. And if you stay outside just a little longer, the damage becomes permanent. 5 more minutes can mean losing part of your body forever. Even breathing feels different here. Each exhale doesn't disappear into the air. It transforms. Tiny ice crystals form instantly, creating a faint crackling sound behind you, like dry grass being crushed underfoot. That sound follows every breath, a constant reminder of how fragile warmth really is. Standing here, surrounded by silence, the village feels almost abandoned. Not because people aren't here, but because the cold keeps them hidden. Movement is limited. Time feels slower, as if the entire world has been frozen along with the ground beneath your feet. To survive, you prepare carefully, layer upon layer of clothing, more than 20 pieces weighing heavily on your body. Fur, insulation, anything that can trap heat. Reindeer fur becomes more than clothing. It becomes protection, a barrier between life and the freezing air outside. And even then, it's not enough. The moment you step out from a warm home where it's a comfortable 30 degrees, the shock hits instantly. Over a 100 degrees difference. Your body struggles to adjust. Your eyelashes begin to freeze, tiny crystals forming on each strand. Your skin tightens. Your fingers lose feeling. Everything slows down. Even technology begins to fail. Phones shut down without warning. Batteries die within minutes. Cars left outside don't just stop working, they freeze solid, as if locked in place by the environment itself. And beneath it all, the ground remains permanently frozen. Permafrost stretching deep below the surface, making it impossible to grow fruits or vegetables. Life here doesn't come from the land, it survives despite it. Getting here isn't easy either. A long journey across thousands of kilometers. Hours in the air, followed by nearly a full day on icy roads. And when you finally arrive, in the middle of the night, the cold greets you immediately. Minus 60 degrees. Step out of the vehicle, and it feels like entering another world. The air burns your lungs. The tiny hairs inside your nose freeze instantly, pricking with every breath. Your throat tightens. You cough uncontrollably as your body struggles to process the dry, frozen air. And yet, people live here. around 800 individuals spread across a small frozen landscape, their lives shaped entirely by the cold. Seeing someone outside is rare, not because they aren't there, but because survival demands caution. Every second outdoors matters. Walk for 15 minutes and the cold leaves its mark. Eyelashes coated in ice, lips forming frozen droplets, faces covered, leaving only small openings to breathe. Even those small openings feel like a risk. Because here, the cold doesn't just exist. It watches, it waits, and the moment you let your guard down, it strikes. Oymyakon sits in a natural basin, surrounded by mountains that trap the cold like a lid on a frozen bowl. There's almost no wind to carry it away. Instead, the cold settles in and stays, day after day, month after month. It doesn't pass through, it lives here. Beneath the surface lies permafrost, a layer of earth that never thaws. It stretches hundreds of meters deep, turning the ground into something closer to stone than soil. You can't dig into it easily. You can't farm it. So survival here depends on adaptation, not resistance. To keep warm, the entire village relies on a central heating system. A single coal-powered boiler works non-stop, sending heat through pipes into homes. It can never stop, not even for a moment, because if it does, the warmth disappears quickly, and the cold takes over just as fast. Inside the houses, everything is built with one purpose: keeping heat in and cold out. Thick wooden beams form the base. Layers of insulation line the floors and walls. Each wall is carefully constructed, layer upon layer, creating a barrier strong enough to fight temperatures that would freeze almost anything else solid. Windows are triple glazed, sealing in warmth while blocking the brutal air outside. Even the attic is packed with insulating materials. Every detail matters, because here, a small weakness in a home isn't just uncomfortable, it can be deadly. Near the entrance of most houses, there's an unheated room. At first glance, it seems strange, but this space plays a critical role. It acts as a natural freezer, where meat and milk are stored without ever spoiling, frozen solid by the environment itself. At the same time, it works as a buffer zone, stopping the worst of the cold from rushing directly into the living space. Daily life here follows a rhythm shaped by the cold. Mornings begin early, often in darkness. Outside, the air is still, heavy, and painfully cold. Yet work must go on. Cattle farming is one of the ways people survive. Even in these conditions, animals are raised and cared for. But nothing is easy. Every task becomes more difficult, more dangerous. The cows must be protected carefully. Sensitive areas are covered to prevent freezing. And when it's time for them to drink, they are led out into the open, toward a river that remains partially unfrozen due to underground springs. They move quickly, instinctively aware of the danger. Their breath turns to frost. Their fur stiffens with ice. Every second outside matters, for them just as much as for the people guiding them. Standing near that river, the cold feels even sharper. Your face begins to lose sensation. Muscles stop responding the way they should. For a moment, it almost feels like something is wrong, like your body is shutting down. Because in a way, it is. The cold forces your blood vessels to constrict, reducing circulation. Less warmth reaches your extremities. And without that warmth, your body starts to freeze from the outside in. It doesn't take long before the warning signs appear again. Numbness, stiffness, a strange creeping sensation that spreads across your skin. And if you ignore it, even briefly, the consequences can be severe. Recovery isn't simple either. You can't just rub the frozen area or expose it to sudden heat. That can make the damage worse. Care must be slow, controlled, deliberate, because once the cold has taken hold, reversing it becomes a delicate process. Even simple tasks like hanging clothes to dry turn into demonstrations of just how extreme this environment is. Within minutes, wet fabric becomes completely frozen, stiff, solid, as if it had been carved from ice instead of cloth. Inside barns, there's a different atmosphere, warmer but still harsh. The smell of hay, livestock, and warm milk fills the air. It's one of the few places where life feels active, where warmth still exists in a more familiar way. And beyond the village, in the open landscape, another kind of survivor thrives. Yakutian horses, smaller, stronger, built for this exact environment. Their bodies are compact, covered in thick fur, designed to hold heat and endure temperatures that would kill most other animals. They live outdoors year-round. No heated shelters, no protection from the elements. Yet they survive, even in minus 70 degrees. Their bodies store fat. Their legs are strong enough to stand on frozen ground for long periods. Everything about them is adapted for survival. A living example of how life can adjust, even in the harshest conditions on Earth. Food here reflects that reality. There are no fresh fruits or vegetables. Instead, nutrition comes from meat, often frozen, sometimes eaten raw, because in these temperatures, everything is preserved naturally. Taste becomes secondary. Survival comes first. As daylight fades, lasting only a few hours during the winter, the village returns to darkness. Activities slow down. People retreat indoors. Because once night falls, the cold becomes even more unforgiving. And tomorrow, the same cycle begins again. Beyond the village, the frozen forest stretches endlessly, a white expanse where every track, every mark in the snow tells a story. For hunters like Ivan, this isn't just wilderness, it's a map, a living record of movement, survival, and opportunity. Out here, the cold feels even more absolute. No shelter, no barriers, just silence and the constant awareness that one mistake could change everything. The frozen river is one of the most dangerous places. Beneath the thick surface, water still flows, invisible, unpredictable. Step in the wrong place and the ice can give way without warning. And in these temperatures, falling into icy water isn't just dangerous, it's almost impossible to recover from. Stories of the past still echo here, lessons passed down through generations, because survival in this environment isn't learned quickly, it's inherited. Fishing becomes a race against time. The moment a fish is pulled from the water, the air begins to freeze it instantly. Within seconds, it stiffens, turning solid. Food preserved naturally, without effort. But even preparing it requires care, warming it slightly just to cut through. Inside a small tent, a fire burns, a fragile source of warmth in a world dominated by cold. It's here that the connection between people and nature becomes clear. Nothing is taken without respect. Every hunt, every catch is acknowledged. A quiet understanding that survival depends on balance. Further into the forest, traps are set, carefully placed along paths animals use every day, covered with snow, hidden from sight. Patience is essential. In this environment, rushing leads to mistakes, and mistakes can cost everything. When a catch is found, it tells a harsh truth. Sometimes it's not the trap that ends the animal's life, it's the cold itself. Once movement stops, the freezing air takes over, fast, unforgiving. That same rule applies to everything here. Back in the village,
Daily life continues under the same conditions. Water doesn't flow through pipes. It would freeze instantly. Instead, people cut blocks of ice from the frozen river, transporting them back home. These blocks become their water supply, slowly melted when needed. Even something as simple as bathing becomes a long, demanding process. Ice must be collected, melted, heated. The entire routine can take hours. It's not about convenience, it's about necessity. Every resource is used carefully, shared when needed. Because isolation here doesn't mean independence, it means reliance on each other. Children wake early, preparing for school in darkness. Layer after layer of clothing protects them from the cold. Faces wrapped, only small openings left to breathe. Even a short walk becomes a challenge.
Yet life continues. Schools remain open unless the cold reaches truly extreme levels, because education, like survival, doesn't stop. Vehicles, too, struggle against the environment. Left outside, they freeze completely. Engines, fuel, batteries, everything locks up. To bring them back to life, hours of careful heating are required. A slow process, reversing the effects of a world that wants everything to stand still. And yet, despite all of this, people endure. Not by fighting the cold, but by understanding it, respecting it, living within its limits rather than trying to control it. Here, nature isn't an enemy to defeat. It's a force to coexist with. Even the harshest moments carry meaning. Every frozen breath, every step through the snow, every challenge faced, it all becomes part of a life shaped by extremes. Because in Oymyakon, survival isn't about strength alone. It's about adaptation. It's about patience. It's about knowing that the cold will always be stronger and choosing to live anyway. And in that choice, in that quiet resilience, something remarkable emerges. Not just survival, but a way of life that endures, even in the coldest place on Earth.